the corner of your eye, huddled in the darkest shadows of imagination, it waits. Now is the time to face the fear. Welcome to Horror Lasagna. Embrace the trepidation.
What?
Awesome.
Yeah, we are recording. Yeah, things look like they're. Yeah, it looks like they're recording. So.
All right.
Okay, we ready? Cool.
Yeah, sure.
The
The
Den.
Den.
Ooh, hey, we said that in unison. That's creepy.
Almost. Yeah. A
Do you
U.S.
find
film.
Do you find any weirdness about we're doing a review of a movie that they get online social media and chat, video chat, and we're doing it through a video chat? That just seemed a little meta for me.
Well, I didn't before, but
You might want to look behind you now.
yeah.
Okay, anyway, sorry, The Den.
Yeah, it's a U.S. film from 2013. It falls under, in my opinion, it falls under two different categories of horror films. It falls under the snuff film category,
Yeah.
and it also falls under a category I call internet horror.
Oh, okay.
So,
And
um,
and an offshoot of found footage, in a lot of ways.
it is, yeah. Snuff films, if you're not, familiar with the term, you can find them in all kinds of movies like Videodrome, S and Man, Fear.com, Kill List, 8mm. The concept is basically that somebody is actually killing someone and recording it, and this is like a secret film of them, killing the person. The term comes from a 1971 book by a guy named Ed Sanders about Charles Manson, and they said that he was planning on making the a snuff film. And in '75, there was actually a movie called Snuff that apparently is really horrible, like as in not horrible like, oh, I can't stand it, like really horrible, like the acting and everything's terrible. Um, but it's supposed to be a snuff film recorded by a motorcycle gang. So
Yeah, they were
the term,
big back in the 70s, or more big, I should say,
hmm
underground big. I
yeah,
remember when we were younger, Faces of Death was a big thing in there.
yep, and the whole series of those.
Yay.
Internet horror, on the other hand, is it's horror that's based around a lot of times voyeuristic camera work, because you're looking in on somebody through their webcam, through their phone cam, something like that. And a lot of times it involves whoever's watching has some sort of power over the people involved. Again, fear.com, unfriended, hashtag horror, Pulse, the J horror classic is one of the early ones. Cam was a recent one that came out recently. It was actually had a nice little twist to it. Friend request, 13 cameras, a movie from 2007 called Look. The entire movie was shot on security cameras,
Oh.
which was kind of an interesting twist, but that was pretty much the only interesting twist about that movie. But
And,
still,
and then, anyone who likes something like Paranormal Activity may enjoy this. It's very similar. Or Blair Witch, going back to that.
sure.
And we just recently saw The Houses That October Built.
Yep.
Very similar. But this is, uh, like you said, the focus on internet, social media type
Correct.
horror, which
Yes.
can get very horrific.
Yes. The visit here is a woman visiting a site. The movie was written by Lauren Thompson, who's done like 3 TV shows, and Zachary Donahoe, who also directed it, and he's only ever did 2 shorts and this movie. So, pretty good for a first major motion picture foray, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
The bizarre thing, well, I mean, there's a lot of bizarre things about this movie, but the most bizarre factoid for me is that this movie released on December 23rd, 2013 in Russia.
Wow.
Yes, the initial release was in Russia maybe they bankrolled it, but it's listed as a
which,
US film. I don't
which
know.
actually makes it way creepier if you think about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Well,
Um,
that that'd be interesting to look into more because I know some of these things they definitely are well planned. They want to see how the reactions go be, and maybe there's a segment of Russia that these movies do very well at. So if
mhm,
it's going to do well anywhere, it's going to do well there. I know the I mentioned Phantom of the Cinema or
yeah,
yeah, movie that there's this one town up in Winnipeg that it's huge and they do festivals like Rocky Horror Picture Show. So if I was
right.
going to do a similar movie, I'd want to put it there first, knowing that. So my guess would be that as long as it's not some Bulgarian underground that funded it and so shown it to all his buddies.
No offense to all of our
No,
fans in Bulgaria.
right. It was just off the top of my head. It could have been Romanian or Californian. They're all
Sure.
kind of the same.
This was a $500,000 budget movie that grossed 410,000, so they missed it by that
That
much.
much.
It's one of the shortest movies we have in any of the seasons at an hour and 16 minutes.
Yeah.
So, it's barely a major motion picture like length, but it squeaks under the wire.
Yeah, considering the Eternals just came out and it's like 2 hours and 37 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, a little
But
blurb there.
I think this may actually have better ratings at the moment. I'd have to actually compare that and see.
We had mentioned in an earlier when we were talking in the bonus episode about the others. It was directed by Alejandro Amenabar,
Right.
and in 1996 he did a movie called Tesis. This one he was set in Spain and in Spanish, and
You
in that
disappeared for a moment.
movie,
Sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, that's fine. You just freaked me out because all of a sudden you were like here and
Well,
then you weren't, and
yeah,
then
you disappeared. Maybe, oh gosh,
yeah,
maybe we just got hacked. We're talking about the den and this happens. Okay, I'm shutting
yes,
everything down. Okay, go on.
burn the
Sorry.
machines. Tesis came out in 1996, and it was about a college student in Spain who was doing a thesis and looked up some movie and found a college student that she knew, and it was a snuff film of that student being killed. And they find themselves trapped in this loop where they end up being the subject of another snuff film, which really made me think of this, whether or not that was an influence on the creators of this film or not. The similarities
Yeah,
are a little uncanny.
yeah, yeah.
This movie also played a role in the more popular film Unfriended, which came out in 2014. It actually gets mentioned in it in passing. Um, and Unfriended actually, it's similar to it where you have somebody's hacking and it's another internet horror. But it made way more money. It cleared $95.2 million.
Wow.
So it was a much more successful use of the genre than this one, but it was nice that there was a nod of the head to the one that came before them. So it opened to mixed reviews. You're not going to find any awards, I don't think, that are going to be handed out to this. Some people thought it was innovative. Some people thought it was more same old stuff. So
Well,
um,
I can agree with both of those. And I even thought, look, going through it, I'm like, I didn't really see anything that jumped out at me like, oh, this like is pushing this type of movie forward. The premise, how they got into it, okay, but that's just part of the story. And not that it's all predictable, but there wasn't anything that you didn't expect.
right, they do a few things really well in this movie. But again, not unlike our last film, if you're here looking for depth of message, there's not a whole lot there. I
Yeah.
mean, at the end, there's a little bit of, kind of social messaging thrown into it,
Yes, I noticed
but
that.
even that feels like an afterthought,
It
right?
really did. It's like, huh, maybe more people will like it if we do this at the end.
Yeah. The movie stars Melanie Papalia. She plays Elizabeth Benton. She's in 40 other films.
Wow.
Most of them are television.
Wow.
So she was on Travelers and Suits and Painkiller Jane, and she had a part in Supernatural and Smallville. She was also in Smiley, which, if you haven't seen it, is more recent slasher film that's out there. It's pretty good
Yeah, I remember
as
that
far
one.
as slasher films go. And she was also in Extraterrestrial, the alien abduction film.
Oh,
So she's not new to the horror genre. Now I'm gonna completely butcher this guy's name. David Schlachtenhofen plays her romantic interest, Damien Clark. He's only got 11 credits, 4 television series, and 3 shorts to his name. So he was kind of an unknown, and still kind of to this day, a bit of an unknown actor.
yeah. Well, he had at least one scene that is like reading it. He's probably like, huh, yeah, I'll do that scene.
Yeah,
Do it again.
yeah,
Take two.
yeah. Adam Shapiro plays Max. And he's all over the place. Max has 91 credits, a lot of television.
Wow.
The Andy Dick Show, Gilmore Girls, Medium, Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, The Mini Product Project, Bones, and he's done voiceover for multiple versions of NBA 2K.
Wow. That's cool.
Uh,
And,
yeah,
and that, listening to all these people that have been on TV, this is probably their first big jump. And this isn't a completely horrible movie. So, it's a good one for him to jump in
right.
on. And
Yeah, yeah,
you just gave me some 6 degrees of separation because he was on Supernatural and so was the lead actress on Supernatural. And this guy was on Gilmore Girls with Jared Padalecki. So, or that's what I meant. He was on Gilmore Girls. We got some 6 degrees of separation going on there. So,
yeah, yeah.
yay for me.
The actual, well, I don't want to say actual, but like one of the more successful actors in this was Seda Erica Edulona, who plays Professor Sally Winters, and she's been in 69 movies.
Oh, and
Dude,
I still didn't recognize her.
she was in Sex and the City, Celebrity Deathmatch,
Hmm.
Law and Order and Law and Order SVU, The Sopranos, Blue Bloods, Scandal, Shameless, Glee. She had her stint on General Hospital. She was on Bones, NCIS, Bull, AP Bio. She was in The Haunting of Hill House,
Oh, wow. Okay.
Better Call Saul, The Royal Tannenbaums, Righteous Kill, and she did voiceover work in Bully and GTA 4.
Nice. Which they're
Yes.
remastering, by the way, I hear.
Yeah, for virtual, I hear, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Then there's an uncredited guy in the movie. They just list him as Skeeter, but he doesn't show up in the credits. His name's Bill Oberst Jr., and he's been in a ton of movies. He's got 197 credits. I don't have them all listed here. He plays the creepy guy in like all these movies, and he is like his big claim to fame was he's the take the lollipop guy, which was that Facebook meme that was out a long time ago where you'd give them permission to get on your Facebook site and they would do this whole thing where this super creepy guy is like stalking you on Facebook, and it like would show like the map to like your location and he'd be driving in a van to come get you. Um, so it's really ironic that he was in this basically like PSA about sharing your data online, and then he
Yes.
shows up in this movie about sharing. He only plays a bit part, some topless guy masturbating in the movie. So,
Oh, okay. I know exactly who you're talking about.
yep, yeah, yeah, right. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting that he was in there. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so this whole thing hits this kind of camera genre. I Technology, we mentioned it with La Casa Muda. Technology really is a liberator for people who want to make movies. This is a great way to get around having to get a whole bunch of expensive gear,
Yeah.
because the whole premise is that it's playing out on the kind of cameras that we have, like right here and on here and
Yep.
all over the place. So you don't have to worry about spending 15 grand on a camera and stuff
And
like
these
that.
found footage ones, they want to look like it's coming from a CCT camera or your phone.
Yep.
So they can actually use that, and people are okay with that. And even a couple of the shows that we watch on TV, uh, it's a paranormal con on camera. They talk about scary and paranormal videos, and they've not been going to the studio, just doing it from home. And they all have iPhones, and they just set them up and sit in front of it. And they're doing a major TV show. With less
Yeah.
budget, and people are just more used to it now from the last 2 years.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me. It's kind of like this whole quality versus quantity argument about, we need content. We don't even care how good it is.
And
But
even then, like you said, liberating, because there might be some really good content. They just don't have the money to get it out to make it look as flashy.
right.
And people are a little better used to the less flashy, but enjoying the content. TikTok and YouTube are great examples. There's so many things that the kids watch that I'm like, this is stupid and it looks like crap, but they're enjoying it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's one of those things where being classically trained, like in the arts, right? You could go through and you look at you had these masters school of art at the time. The people studied with Da Vinci and people studied with Michelangelo, and then as you get more and more people, now all of a sudden you have, well, we've got cameras, so you don't have to be able to paint pictures perfectly. Come up with some other way of looking at the world, and so now you have these schools of art. You have realism, you have impressionism, you have surrealism, and now we're like in the postmodern age where there's just so many people. There is no school to it. It's just grab what you can and dump it in and just churn it out,
Yeah.
and what sticks sticks.
Yeah, and this is kind of a good example, $500,000 budget.
Yep.
We've had movies with less budget that we,
Oh,
liked
absolutely.
quite a well. This was actually kind of high budget compared to a few of those.
It was. Um, the movie begins like someone's just logging into this website, and it's Liz logging on to this site called The Den, and she basically gets pranked by this kid
And that was
who's in a
great.
dark room. Yeah, and he's like, "There's a monster in my closet," and so she plays along, and then all of a sudden there's a jump scare, and there's a snap where he takes a picture of her just as she's recoiling, and ha ha ha, and that's how the movie starts, which I think was actually, one of the more masterful parts of the film was just that opening scene, because it sets the tone and it lets
Agree.
you know exactly what you're dealing with.
Agree. And it sets the expectations a little off kilter because, okay, well, they already showed us that. So is this really going to be like that or not? It does
Yeah,
a very good job. There are so many movies that take too long at the beginning to say something. This, boom, you know, did it well.
yeah,
And the kid was creepy, and which is one of the things they also show throughout this whole thing.
yeah, and it also begs the question, like through the entire thing, what is actually real?
Right,
Because there's other scenes that come along that you're like, oh my gosh, did that just happen? And then it turns out it really didn't. It was just some kind of prank. So
right.
um, so the footage in this film is all made to look like it's security cameras, laptops, phones. And Liz, the main character, is proposing to do a sociological study of this chat room phenomenon, and she wants to propose. She wants to just sit there and like log on every day, meet as many people as she can, and like try to glean some kind of data out of this massive set. Um, and she's proposing it to a college board who has the board's made up of, I think, three old white guys, one very grumpy looking old white woman, and then you have Professor Winters, who is the young hip African American lady who's on the thing. Um, so she makes her pitch, and her pitch is very professional looking. She's got a whole
Yeah,
PowerPoint presentation and everything. And then she's just waiting to hear back from them. And at this point, the camera on her laptop is on, and you just get to see her wait. You get to see chat messages come up from her boyfriend. You get to watch her check her emails. I really think it's kind of, I mean, on the one hand, it was good because it shows and reinforces, the situation she's in. On the other hand, I think it's also just a good excuse to show her running around in her underwear and stuff like
yeah.
that,
I thought
as
that
she's
was
hanging
cute.
out.
She gets done talking to them, and then the next thing they show her getting up, and she's in her underwear, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the joke for the last year and a half,
Yes.
which was this
So
was done 7 years ago. So
right. So she gets a chat invitation from Dr. Winters, and she finds out that she got the grant, but the professor really had to push the board to give it to her because it's not the kind of thing they typically, they would probably deem this as silly.
Something they don't understand exactly.
Yes, yes. So then we find out that she kind of has two guys on the line because she's getting a hold of people to let them know that she got the grant. And one of them is Max, who you can tell from the way they communicate wants to be more than just her friendly neighborhood IT guy.
Right.
And she wants a friendly neighborhood IT guy from Max.
I can totally relate to poor Max.
Yes, I figured you could.
Yeah.
And then you have Damien, who's like the Rico Suave in a cubicle working on some finance thing or something somewhere, and they're like the actual romantic couple. Um, he asks her if she wants to get together that night, but she's really excited to start this project, so she decides she's going to stay in and you know check out what all's going on in the den. One of the first things that I note is she goes in to customize her experience, and what are you interested in? And she clicks yes
Everything,
to everything. Yes,
including extreme,
yeah,
which I
and
thought was a little weird, but okay.
it's like we're not responsible for anything you're going to see from here on out, right? And she's like, yeah, fine. And the very first thing she gets is like some naked guy slapping his penis around. Well, it's not the first thing, but it's like the third thing that
Yeah.
she's flipping through. So she can expect a lot more of that, you would think, as the thing goes on. She runs into a couple guys who are trying to scam her into talking to them about sex in a very awkward way. And then the one that I really love, she runs into this guy who's on a bike in New York City. And she's like, "That's amazing," and he's like, "Yeah, New York, 4G baby," and then he gets hit by a car or something like that.
And I love that whole thing because right there's a minor statement. It's like, this is what it's like on the internet with people. This is what you get. It was like 95% of everyone she talked to wasn't worth it, were creeps of some sort. Just people like, oh, I have to be social and online. No, you really don't, because the worst of the worst comes out, and the worst of people come out. Too. It's not just
Oh yeah,
anonymous. So, well, not this
yeah.
one so anonymous, but you still don't know who they are.
So there's a little interruption where she gets, food delivery or something like that, and the poor guy on the bike is damaged or whatever. And you find out what Max has been working on for her. He's got this screen capture program that's running that will record her while she's on, well, not record her, but record what's on her screen while she's in the den. Which, really handy. And kudos to Max. I mean, that's some decent programming, I would assume, not
Yeah.
just something anybody could do.
Well, OBS does it, so.
Okay. Yeah, it's already here.
Well, I was going to
She
make
had,
that comment later too when they do the vid clean. It's like these things look magical, but they actually all exist. We've got this stuff out there,
yeah,
so it's all available.
yeah. She has a friend named Jenny. They're going to get together for the night, but of course they're going to stay in. So they're sitting around and they're going through the den, drinking beers. And this person pops up as they're going through, and it's a still picture. It's not like an actual camera thing. And it's Paya Girl asterisk 16. And it pops up, and they have this kind of conversation, and then they move on, and then Liz has to use the bathroom, and while she's away, Pie Girl 16 pops back up, and Jenny goes to interact with her a little bit, and I believe she calls her a bitch or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah, and so um, it's a little unsettling. It gets more unsettling because the scene with Jenny is over and the lights are now out, and you have Liz sitting there, and someone's logging into the den while Liz is in her bed.
Yeah, and I love that part because you saw a flash of command line code. So it was a
Yes.
very good signal. Oh, this is not good, not right.
Yes. And this is along those lines when I was talking to you about, you're going to hide your level of disbelief. When someone hacks into your computer, there's not suddenly some disturbance and a line of code flashes up for
Right,
a half a second. That doesn't actually happen. But,
right.
it's a good way in a movie to indicate that somebody has gotten a hold of her login information.
At least this is better than Sandra Bullock in The Net, where they didn't have any wires going to the computer.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Um, and and this is a legit thing. Liz was trying to log in and got an incorrect password warning, and then she tries again, and there's where your flash of code happens. And that's actually a legitimate phishing scheme. Is they will post up what looks like the login, collect your credentials, then let you through, and then when you're not paying attention, they'll come back,
Right.
which is exactly what happens. As her camera turns on while she's asleep, the chat window opens. It's the avatar for Pia Girl 16, and she sounds like she's in distress or like gagged. And it's loud enough off of Liz's laptop that she gets up and goes over to turn her computer off. And the next day, she's asking Max about it. And like your typical IT fashion, Max is like, yeah, could be. Is that something that could happen? Yeah, could be. So then he says it's probably not, it's probably not anything you're too concerned with. But so
Which he's right on both accounts, but in this case, he
yes,
was wrong.
right. This is the one to prove the rule. She goes to a coffee house and she's logged in there, which, if you're going to be doing this kind of shady stuff in the first place, you should definitely be doing it on your own secure network, not
Yeah,
some public network in a coffee house. But
yeah. I've never actually heard of anyone getting hacked in a coffee shop, and that's where everybody worries about it. My cousin
right.
once told me that she wasn't worried about it because when she logs on, she sits far away from everybody.
Oh, that helps.
And
Socially distances.
yeah, I asked her if she would wear a tinfoil hat to block the signals.
Nice one. Yeah, I just bought a whole roll of hat. Um, so she's at the coffee house flipping through stuff. She goes to get her order, and when she comes back, Pia Girl 16 is connected with her and says they're going to type because, well, she doesn't actually explain why here. She just says she's going to type. So it's the solid picture, and they're going to type back and forth. And she asks if they can be friends. Pia Girl asks Liz if they can be friends. And Liz is like, sure. And then it cuts to this fetish scene of some guy being, mistreated by some dominatrix in black leather.
Yeah, and these made me laugh because obviously this is probably part of the point and message, but it's like 5 videos in a row, all creepy, weird people and weird stuff, and every guy is on there for sex in some way. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. The movie then cuts to her actually having a conversation with this nice lady from England whose boyfriend comes through and kind of plays like a little goofy thing. And then, okay, so there's this really nice little section there. Boom. And you're like, oh, okay, I can connect with that. She finally found someone nice to talk to while she was here. That conversation ends, and she gets an email from Professor Winters asking her for an update. While she's responding to the professor, Damien calls up and he's trying to get her to go over to his place. And she keeps putting him off. And it cuts to her being asleep. And then you see her computer log on again, and you're like, oh, it's happening again. And then the computer moves.
Yeah.
So whoever's logged in is actually there. And it moves over towards the bed, and it like pulls back, and you see this hand, and it turns out it's Damien. And
Right.
he's like, yeah, I didn't want to wait around.
So
And
so we've got our second oh my gosh, what's going on? And it turns out to be a false
Yep,
red herring
that's
there.
right. Another red
Well,
herring.
that's the last one.
Oh no, not quite, but
No, there's
it's
one more. Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Um, they proceed to engage in adult entertainment, and while they're doing it, someone logs into her account on the den, records it, and then you see an email window pop up, and you see the video being uploaded into the email. You don't really know who that was going to, but you do find out before the end of the
Oh
film.
yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. Um, the next day, she's having a conversation with her sister, a new character who is pregnant.
And I
Um,
actually got her sister and her friend confused a little bit until I realized they were two separate characters. It wasn't super clear
yeah.
they were separate.
While they're talking, someone knocks on her sister's door. The conversation ends. Liz continues to scroll through stuff. She talks to a Nigerian prince.
Yeah, that was funny because the spam mails that everybody knows about now, they're going live.
Yes.
That one really did make me laugh, but that was my favorite.
Yeah. Then Pia Girl 16 shows back up and asks if she's liking the website. Or I'm sorry, she asks Pia Girl 16 if she's liking the website, and Pia Girl 16 says they like watching people and points out how they saw her and Damien having the sex the night before. And she seems really shocked by that, as one, probably should be. And then the camera kicks on, revealing the girl from the avatar photo. She is bound and gagged and hyperventilating, and someone slams her head onto a table and then slices her throat.
And this is where you start to wonder because they showed that earlier one where those people were playing Russian roulette and it turned out to be a big joke.
That actually happens later.
Oh, it does? Oh, okay. I
Right.
mixed that up. Well, I just ruined it for everybody. Oh,
It's fine, but um she does get freaked out and she calls the police, and like the cybercrime unit comes over. Cybercrime unit. And he's like, it looked real. It's a lot like the IT guy. Could be. But are you going to do anything about it? Probably not.
so what the heck is the cybercrime unit for?
Right. Um, so she starts, this is actually a brilliant thing. She goes through and she starts looking through Pia Girl 16's friend list and connecting with them and asking if they know anything. And of course, most of them are just being creepy. And then she comes across one of the friend lists has this Russian roulette scene.
Okay, that's where it came in.
This is the last of the red herrings, because they go through and it's a very intense thing. And one lady pulls a trigger and nothing happens. And the next lady pulls a trigger and her head explodes out behind her. And then everyone at the table starts laughing, including the person who just shot themselves.
Right.
So it's enough to give her that, maybe this isn't a real thing. Maybe I'm overreacting kind of thing. She does ask Max to look into it. Um, and Max is like, yeah, okay, but I don't know what I'll find out. But um,
And this is the one part I wondered. How he must be a super hacker to be able to get into this system and get the logs of one particular user. And I know somebody could probably do it, but it's probably not the easiest thing in the world.
come on, Steve, he can make screen capture programs.
Ooh,
He's obviously a genius.
yeah. That
Um,
was the only one that was a little stretch, but I understand it for the story too.
she gets a hold of Damien, who's out of town. Um, and he's like, you're overreacting, it's faked. And then he shared a video with her, and if it hasn't come through, but she gets a phone call and answers it, and he gets mad and just hangs up.
Yeah, he was outside going to his car and he just throws his phone over on the seat.
Yes. The video finally comes through, and the video is of him being very cute and giving her a virtual tour of the zoo of whatever town he happens to be in for whatever business thing he's doing. And she goes to call him, And he comes on and starts talking to her, and here it's just a recorded loop from a previous conversation they had. And when she figures that out, it suddenly cuts to his apartment is completely empty.
And we actually, when he goes into his car, the previous scene, we see somebody in the back seat of his car.
Well, if you do, you have a really good eye,
Oh, I caught it.
because I didn't see it the first time. I saw it the same time she did.
Oh, okay, because I actually caught it when he was in the car.
Yes, because later she goes through and uses the video enhance thing, and you can see who's in the back seat. But yeah, so that did happen. But if you're not paying attention, like Eagle Eye Steve,
I got one.
uh, you did.
1 point. Time to take a drink, everybody.
um, so she's like, "This is really odd." She calls the police. Um, the police show up. She shows up. They're all like walking around looking like what's going on. And while they're doing this, you can watch it happen on Liz's laptop, which somebody has hacked into and is running. Then it goes over and gets a hold of her friend Jenny. And whoever is running her laptop informs Jenny that the camera's broken on my laptop. Can you come over to my apartment? And Jenny's like, sure, that's fine. So she gets lured to the apartment while Liz is here arguing with the police. And they're like, we don't know what to tell you. It hasn't even been 24 hours. We can't start a missing persons thing. While she's doing that, Jenny is at Liz's house. She follows the trail of breadcrumbs to the bedroom. And while she is there, somebody with a bag on their head grabs her. And that's not the end of Jenny, but it's the last we see of her for a while.
Yeah.
Liz comes home and she's talking to Max about how Damien's missing. She gets mad because he wasn't able to, all on his own, solve the whole Paya Girl 16 mystery. And then she hangs up. And she's napping when her sister calls, and whoever is running her account answers.
Yes.
So her sister's talking to whoever is running her account. And we as viewers know this, but Liz does not.
Right.
She wakes up and tries to get a hold of Jenny. No avail, obviously. And she gets this urgent message from Professor Winters, and it turns out that the sex tape that was recorded has been emailed to all the people on the grant board.
And they're a
And
little pissed.
Yes, the professor's upset.
So, do you think they were pissed after they saw it, or after the fifth or sixth time they saw it?
So Liz goes back to her original strategy. Damien's missing. She goes to Damien's friend list. And she gets a hold of one of Damien's old school friends, who gets mad that she got a hold of her, and then flags her, and she gets booted from the den for I don't know what it said, 24 hours or something like that. But she's been put in Facebook jail, as everyone likes to say.
And right here I started thinking, because I know a lot of people that freak out about the cameras. There was some big thing going around, and everybody was blocking their cameras, putting shutters on their cameras and covering them up. And I'm kind of laughing because I'm like, well, even to get to your camera, they need to break into your computer in some way. And once they do that, there's way more they can do than just look at your damn camera. People use the same password for 37 different accounts and then wonder what happened to their bank account.
Yeah. And when you get to the end of this movie, because I was thinking along the same lines. When you get to the end of the movie and you see what this is all about, the people who are doing this would make more money just from stealing the data off of people's computers than this whole elaborate setup to torture people.
Yeah,
You know what
but
I mean?
that just, there's people that's their messed up
Their
mind or
thing.
whatever. Yeah, and now the crazy psychos are making money off of it, so it's even better.
Yeah, I suppose.
Leatherface needs to take some notes.
That's right. Liz goes on to find another one of Damien's friends, gets a hold of him, and he's like talking to her, and he had a link from Damien just the other day, and she's like, "Can you send it to me?" And here the guy's like rickrolling her.
Yeah. And he loves it.
Um,
He laughs and
yeah, yeah. And right about here is where Skeeter shows up in the video. So this is where she gets out her magical video compression tool and starts to do video analysis of the
right.
last footage of Damien. All right, can you hang on just a second? You gonna go where?
I could sing.
Thanks. Oh, there it is.
I
It
was
got hung
just
up on my
about
hat.
ready to break out in song.
Um, so she gets out her VidClean Pro 2.4 and she starts looking at the video, the last footage she has of Damien. She uses the magical enhance feature, which um, builds corruption data,
Yeah.
whatever that means.
Which is questionable if she would have been able to recover that much that well, but
Yeah, but you can actually see in the backseat of Damien's car, there's a guy with a bag on his head, very similar to the guy who took Jenny that she doesn't know all about. She tries to get the police. They're not a whole lot of help. Um, she gets a chat request from Damien, which leads to his this edited montage of clips from all of their chats, where basically says that this guy's hunting people on the site and there's nothing she can do about it now. And I thought that was actually kind of a clever way of communicating. If you have somebody's whole big thing where you can communicate back and forth.
plus also showing all this thing lately with the deep fakes and being able to take so much recorded material from somebody to get their face and their voice and splice them together with AI and that to make it like they really did say something. It puts into question any video, any audio on
Yeah,
TV, or it should put into question. But some people,
the post-truth era
yeah.
of data. Then it gives her a link, and she clicks on it.
Again,
Yeah. And then in record time, this link wipes her computer way faster than anything I've ever seen that could like
yeah.
delete that amount of data.
But this is pretty much exactly how the ransomware nowadays works.
Oh
And
yeah.
and I've had a couple people with my company have that problem that they clicked the wrong thing and not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily even with work, but it literally bound up their whole computer and they were supposed to pay whatever. Uh, and they ended up
Yeah.
wiping it and losing a bunch of stuff rather than pay. But that really does exist. I know some people may
Oh
not believe
sure.
that. So believe me, someone hacking your camera is small beans.
Yes. Do not click on links from people you don't know.
They're going to see your basement and my wall. Go ahead, hack my camera all you want then.
um, she calls Max over, and Max comes in clutch with IT advice. Don't click on links from people you don't know, and there's nothing I can do. There's no data left. So she gets mad and kicks him out.
Yeah, well, what about your backup? She's like, well, I don't have one. Fix it. Well, I can't. Well, you're terrible. Get out of here. Us poor IT guys get that all the time. If we're not
Absolutely.
magical, then we're not worth it.
Fix it.
Yeah.
Fix it, Steve. She tries to get a hold of Jenny. Um, Jenny says that she's home, and Liz goes and finds Jenny like in the bathtub with her wrists slit. And by the end of the scene, Jenny's still alive when Liz gets there, but by the end of the scene, Jenny is dead.
Yeah. Pretty horrific. Bloody water. She wakes up gasping and then passes away
Right,
from the exertion.
right. Um, so Liz gets a gun, and then decides to learn how to use it online.
With other creepy videos. That guy was
Yeah.
pretty hilarious.
Yeah. Here's how you load it. I'm only going to put 2 rounds in here. Um, right about here, the first time I saw this, I had made up my mind for sure this was Max.
Ah. Huh.
He has the skills to be able to do this, the skills to fake that he doesn't know how to do it. He's a jilted lover. It made all kinds of sense to me. Spoiler alert, it's not Max.
You're totally wrong.
Right. But, it was feeling that way. So that was
Yeah.
kind of a nice twist that they didn't let it fall into the jilted geek stereotype that so many movies do.
Right, yeah.
She gets a message about her sister, and the killer is at her sister's. And she gets to watch all of this footage. She's called the police and everything, but like she's telling her sister to get out, and there's the guy with the mask, and there's this creepy new element because someone else is filming it.
Yeah.
So it's not just one guy. There's 2 of them. And the guy knocks her sister down, has her all tied up and bound, and like traces across her belly with this giant knife,
And she's
but
pregnant.
she's pregnant, does not actually hurt her because apparently that's the line too far
Well,
to cross.
but I took it that he was going to, but luckily Liz called the police and said, I've got an intruder, here's where I live, and reported it like she was at her sister's. So they got there quick because I heard the siren. So I took it that he
Yes.
was going to, but they stopped him, and there's a good reason for that.
I meant the film creators.
Oh.
That was a line they didn't want to cross.
Which is probably good.
And L'Intérieur, you got me that film the other
Yeah.
day, that new French extremity film. That movie deals with a pregnant woman who's being tortured and like very graphically. So it's, that's like its selling point. And it's one of those movies that just got ripped apart because of how graphic it is.
I can see that.
And so this is the line the creators didn't want to cross.
And it was a good way to, with the cops showing up and then the little twist here.
Yes.
And at
So
least there was no dog because that would have been the worst.
no dogs. That's right. The dogs are all safe. The cops show up, and while they're there interviewing Liz and checking the house out, one of the cops starts asking Liz's sister all these inappropriate questions about where's the dad? Shouldn't he be here? And you're like, that's just a little creepy.
Yeah.
That's inappropriate. And then the guy picks up a camera.
The camera that they had set down, the bad guys, when they
Right,
left.
evidence, and then starts recording and walks out. And now you realize not only does this guy have a partner who's doing this guy's got someone on the inside with the police.
Yeah.
So they're putting Liz into protective custody. And you get this shot of them driving Liz back to her apartment, but it's from a dash cam of a vehicle following behind them. So the killer slash torturer slash bad guys are still actively involved here.
And it was a great film way of keeping the found footage going.
Yeah.
It's like a double twist thing. So that was
Yeah.
pretty well done.
The police get back to her apartment. An officer goes in, checks everything out. Everything looks good. She can come in, and then she's like, I'm just going to grab a few things, and then I'll be right down. And he's like, okay, and leaves. And she's in the apartment by herself. And her laptop goes off with a chat message, and she answers it.
Some people don't learn, do they?
I'm like, what the hell?
So she got the grant very luckily because obviously she's not super smart.
She's not. And here's that scene I was talking about. She hits clicks on the link. It's from Max. It's Max's apartment, which has been turned upside down, and the cop enters the room. The detective from Cybercrimes enters Max's room because apparently he was thinking it was Max as well. And he sees this laptop down there, and he's got his gun out, and he like puts his gun away, and he walks over to the laptop because he can see that Liz is on the screen. And in my head, I'm like, clear the room, clear the room. He does not. Puts his gun away, and mask face guy hits him with a sledgehammer and then buries the sledgehammer in his head.
Yeah. And that there, I was like, man, why was that guy waiting? But it's like, oh, duh. they're cops. They know. It might have even been this guy's partner in the car that
Yep.
came in. I was like, man, that's pretty good actually.
Yeah. So she's freaking out. And then she notices that the scene on her laptop mirrors what she's actually doing in real life. She realizes she's being recorded right now and walks over to the air vent and finds there's a camera in the air vent. And right about then is when the power goes out.
Always a good sign.
Yes. She goes to leave the front door and finds the police officer who was supposed to be escorting her chained in the most elaborate method. I mean, that would have taken a half hour.
I was looking for Pinhead. Seriously.
Yeah, the guy's chained up to like her porch and he's all bloody and apparently dead. So she slams the door and runs into the kitchen and grabs a knife. Opens the door and there's Baghead guy there. He comes in and then, you know, weak women or whatever, the guy grabs her and lifts her off the ground like by 2 feet and then throws her like she weighs nothing. I'm
She is
like,
pretty skinny, and psychos do have yeah, you see them like chimpanzee strength sometimes.
well, he's a big guy, apparently. I
Yeah,
mean, he's tall for sure. But
rednecks. They eat meat.
yeah. He gets a hold of her and starts dragging her closer to him. She turns around and knifes him in the belly and then proceeds to just go haywire and just hack, 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 hack. So she takes him out.
Yeah,
Good on her.
yeah.
Then she runs out of the house, takes off as she's running down the road. She stops and to look at like her injuries, and you hear this truck, and it runs into her. And there's like a bag face on the front of the truck, which is just weird. It was a really weird. Yeah, okay, she got hit by a vehicle. I get it, but with the face at the end of that scene,
Yeah.
the movie now.
And it's one of those, like we were saying before, don't stand next to the pit where you just killed the alien grabber creature. Go away.
Correct.
Don't stop and look at your minor injuries because your
Yes,
life is on the line.
that's right.
It's whatever.
Keep going. The movie now transitions from like snuff / internet horror straight into torture porn. From here on out, the rest of the movie feels like it's Saw, or it
Yeah.
feels like it's Hostel. Um, any one of those movies where someone's captured and put in some factory, abandoned factory, and there's chains and people are bound. That's exactly what the rest of this movie feels like. So
Yeah,
it
and
really,
I even said it's pretty typical. It seems like, the same template.
yeah, it shifts gears really hard, into that slot. And I still haven't made up my mind whether that's a good thing or not. Originally, the movie was supposed to end when she gets hit with the truck.
Oh.
Everything that's tagged on afterwards is what was actually the theatrical release.
Huh. Actually, I think I would have not enjoyed it as much if it ended when she got hit the truck, because it made everything seem, who cares? Regardless of good or bad, the end 10 minutes or so,
Wraps it up.
Yeah, it does. You don't have a complete story until that, at least.
And I honestly think they probably would have left it at the end, except they looked at the clock and was like, this is only an hour long.
We have a after school special right now.
Right. So she finds herself chained to a wall. She has a GoPro stapled to her head.
Like
I'm not
Indiana
talking.
Jones with his hat.
Well, I was thinking like martyrs, but not like those biggest staples. This is like staple gun kind of staples, which she finds too painful to remove. There's a laptop there, and it would appear that Damien is still alive, and he's been there for a long time, and he's chatting to her through the window. She's confused. She's trying to figure out what is going on. She gets a chat call from Max. She answers that, and you find out that it's not Max because Max is tied up to a chair. And while she watches, her boyfriend's like, no, this was recorded. I've already seen this. Then he gets kicked off the chat, and someone wraps a bag around Max's face and just holds it there until Max stops breathing.
So they're racking up quite a big body count of all her friends.
Yes, pretty much everyone but her sister. Nobody else survives. She's sitting there trying to get herself unchained when she gets another chat message from Damien. She clicks on it for some godforsaken reason just in time to see them basically drag Damien off to his death.
And I think actually right there, I wouldn't believe she'd just keep clicking this stuff. And I don't think it would have ruined anything to just have it pop up because we know they're in control. They can do whatever.
Yeah,
So just to have it pop
yeah,
up and play. But that's a minor thing. But
yeah. At what point, American films, we got to show you everything. We got to explain it all.
let me beat you over the
Um,
head one more time.
yeah, she's trying to pull the chain loose. The door opens up, and in comes somebody with. And it took me a long time to figure out what it was. I think it was a machete.
Yeah, I think so. Because doesn't she grab it? Doesn't she get
Yeah,
it?
she does. But she manages to, kudos to her, chain around the neck and take him out.
She doubled up the chain and swung it to hit him with it. It's like that's perfect. That's a weapon I don't see used too often, and that's all she had. And that was
Yep.
pretty smart of her, actually.
So
Everything else she did was dumb, but that's all good.
she just can't stop clicking. She
Yeah,
could have done that. She'd have been fine.
social media. She's trained.
She is. She finds keys, gets her ankle thing uncut, and then she heads out into the darkness that is this abandoned factory wherever she is. And of course, she's being hunted. There's people running around after her. Over the course of the whole thing, she takes out, well, an alarm starts as she's going. She finds a room full of blood, and that's when I actually realized that what she had was a machete, because there's a camera shot from a distance, and you can see her standing there holding it.
Her Laura Croft pose.
Her Laura Croft pose, yes. But people are hunting her, and she's like choosing to hunker down and you know be quiet and try to outwit them, and she's gone from playing a first person shooter to playing a stealth mission game.
Right. I
you
kept
know
waiting for Batman actually to swoop in.
yeah. um Somewhere along the lines she loses the machete, but she gets a hold of a hammer. Um and one of the guys, I think it's the guy she took the hammer from, she cracks him in the face with it, peels his mask up and asks where Damien's at, and the guy's like, he's not here. But when you look at the guy, he looks like he's 12,
Yeah. Yeah, I thought so too.
which is
Which
an
go ahead.
harkens back to the new French extremity, il, or them. The whole movie is about a pack of feral 14-year-old kids hunting people down. And I'm like, maybe this is another nod.
Yeah, I would say that's the thing. These young kids are learning this. They're anonymous. They can do whatever they want because it's on the internet, and they don't have to be. You know, they can be themselves. You could say.
Sure.
I thought the same thing.
As terrifying as that is.
Well, yeah.
She does
That's
manage.
but the internet and the social media brings that out, like the worst of people. We've that's not the first time we've brought that up,
Yeah,
but
the anonymity of it all,
yeah,
the safety of being in your own house. She does manage to get outside. She's in the middle of the desert somewhere, and of course, guys come running because
yeah.
she's outside.
Now, when those sirens went off, did you think we were about to go to the underworld in Silent Hill? That
I
sounded
knew
just like it.
it was the sound, but I knew it wasn't going to be that good.
That really would have changed the movie.
She manages to get a hold of one of their cars, and as she's driving away, she gets hit by another vehicle.
Yeah,
So a defensive driving course would have helped her out.
yeah. She didn't really have a lot of where to go. It was a dirt road and through
That's
hills and
true.
stuff.
In the middle of California or something
Yeah,
like
and
that.
they were in a definite remote location.
Yes. It cuts back to the British lady that she had talked to, logging into the den, and she's scrolling through, um, and she comes across this video of Liz like strung up on a bucket, and the bucket gets kicked out, and she's kind of choking for a while, and then they cut the line, and then just some guy comes over and pretty unceremoniously shoots her in the head. Then the film freezes there, and it has stats. It says Elizabeth died on May 7th at 11:49 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Do you want to take on another person's narrative. And this is where it starts to do the social commentary thing.
Mm.
Because it turns out there's some guy in his living room or in his office who is like going through and basically ordering up for a minimal fee people to be tortured that he can watch the footage of.
Right. And one of them
And
happens to be that English lady.
yes, the English
So
lady
it's a
is
loop.
next.
When you
Yes,
see somebody, you become the next one.
right. And the door opens and you hear this girl say "Dad," and he's like quickly turning off his laptop because it's almost like it's porn.
Right.
And then the credits roll.
Right. So
There's two very interesting things that happened there at the end that make me think the movie might have been a little more influential than the release would make you think. There was an Italian movie that just recently came out. It was on Netflix for a hot second, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically this girl on a ride share thing, ends up in this thing, and she's being tortured, and there's like all these demons and cult like stuff. And here it was just somebody filming a movie.
okay.
And at the very end of that, as she survives and gets up and walks away, it scrolls out, and there's some guy actually scrolling through, and he's like ordering stuff up. And I was like, that's really crazy because it harkens back to this movie from 2013.
Yeah. Yeah.
This very low budget, rarely seen kind of thing from 2013. I just thought, you know what? Maybe this movie it showed up on a couple other things. They harken back to. I don't want to say they harken back to because I don't know what they were thinking, but it does kind of feel like they harken back to some older movies.
Mm.
All in all, I thought the movie was pretty decent.
Yeah. I mean, if you like the found footage, if you like the internet found footage type movies, yeah, it's short, so you're not spending a lot of time and then going, "Wow, I wasted my life," if
That's
nothing
right.
else. It did. I mean, if it came out today, it probably wouldn't be as good. But considering when it came out, before a lot of these other movies started coming out, it's kind
Yeah,
of the
it
original.
hit kind of a sweet spot there.
Yeah.
It's it was a visit to a website. It was an American-made film. I thought it fit all the criteria. You had not seen it,
Nope. Yep.
and yeah, that was The Den.
The Den. So go see the Den. Get that one. I don't remember where we got it. I'll look and find links.
There you go.
So what's next?
Next, we're going to go in the complete opposite direction back to, I believe, 1929, and we're going to watch a silent film called The Phantom Carriage.
Oh, yeah, I'm always up for a good black and white silent film.
Yes.
All I need is to get some organ music.
The music in there is, I got to research this because the music on the copy that we have to watch is really eerie and creepy, and it's more than like the film itself. And if it's an actual transcription of the music that they played, it was super cutting edge for 1929.
Wow. Yeah, the only
Yeah.
place I found this one was archive.org. So
Yeah. It's yeah, well, again,
we'll talk.
you're always getting me into it. So we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. So Phantom Carriage coming up next, season 2. That'll be episode 4?
I do believe,
I
yeah.
think so. All right. See you
Cool.
then.
All right, see.
The creature slips